Today I'm going to backport Sableye into Generation 1, and I am really excited to try this thing because the Dark Ghost type had no weaknesses prior to Generation 6. Also in Generation 1, all of the early game Pokemon pretty much exclusively know normal type moves, so there are very few Pokemon that can even damage Sableye. It's also fantastic because it comes with a medium slow growth rate, so I'm expecting the early portions of this game to be an absolute cakewalk. Although I will let you know that things don't go quite as smoothly as I was expecting in this run. Alright, let's talk about the backport that I made. It's pretty simple. Sableye has the same special attack and special defense, so I gave it 65 in its special stat. Beyond that, it has 50 HP, 75 attack and defense, and 50 speed, giving it a 9.77% chance to crit in Generation 1. I always base my backport move pools off their initial generation, so it's going to start with Leer and Scratch like it does in Generation 3. Now in Generation 1, Pokemon typically don't have as many moves through level up as they do in later generations, so I had to pare down Sableye's options, and I'm only going to give it 5 moves at some levels that it learns stuff in Generation 3. In Generation 3, it learns Foresight, Nightshade, Astonish, Fury Swipes, Fake Out, Detect, Feint Attack, Knock Off, Confuse Ray, Shadow Ball, and Mean Look. 3 of these moves exist in Generation 1, Nightshade, Fury Swipes, and Confuse Ray. I'm going to replace Astonish with Lick because they're both low base power ghost type moves, and Feint Attack with Swift so that I can bypass accuracy checks. Looking at Sableye's Generation 3 TM and HM learn set, you can see that it learns Water Pulse, so she'll probably get the 2 water type moves from Generation 1. It also gets Focus Punch, Brick Break, and Rock Smash, so I'm going to give it the 3 fighting type moves in Generation 1, and it also gets Dig in Generation 3, and Dig is fantastic in Generation 1 with 100 base power. Of course it's going to get Psychic and I guess Dream Eater, although it doesn't have a sleep-inducing move. There will be one day where I will use Dream Eater exclusively against Lorelei's Dugong just for the meme. I also looked at some future generation learn sets like the current one where it does learn a move like Thunder Wave, so I'm going to give it this move as well in Generation 1. Now one thing about Sableye is that its eyes are based off of crystals, so it gets rock type moves throughout the generations. So in this challenge it's also going to get the move Rock Slide. If you didn't know, Dig and Rock Slide together give neutral coverage against every late game threat in Pokemon Yellow, so I think Sableye is set up for success. Quickly examining the Generation 3 Tutor Learn set, it becomes obvious that it should also learn the move Body Slam. So yeah, this thing gets great moves, has a fantastic typing, and the best growth rate in the game. What could possibly hold it back? Well, the answer is none of the early game bug trainers in Viridian Forest, because they all just have normal type moves. Well, with the exception of String Shot, but that doesn't do anything. The first mandatory trainer that can actually damage Sableye is Brock, and that might seem strange to you because his Pokemon only have normal type moves. Geodude of course can't do any damage to Sableye, it only has Tackle. So it's a free knockout. I can set up Leer, lowering its defense, and then Scratch to knock it out quickly. Beyond that, I level up learning Nightshade at 13, and then he sends in his Onix. This is the Pokemon that can damage Sableye. All moves that deal fixed damage bypass the type calculations in the game, so Bide is going to deal direct damage to Sableye and never check the ghost typing. This stops working in Generation 2, by the way. There is also a weird quirk with Onix, where if it chooses Bind, it is going to play the animation, wasting my time, but do no damage to Sableye. I was a little bit worried here because I only have 22 speed, but with Nightshade I'm dealing so much damage that even if it did use Bide, provided it wasn't on turn 1 and it took only 2 turns to unleash energy, I would win. So once I've damaged the Onix and he hasn't chosen Bide, I know that I've won. So that's that. First gym leader defeated. With the Boulder Badge, I now have a 12.5% boost to my attack stat. Alright, Route 3. There are Pokemon here that can damage Sableye, specifically the Weedle with Poison Sting, also this Ekans with Poison Sting on youngster Ben's team. Of course, the ghost type resists the poison type because ghosts getting poisoned doesn't make a lot of sense. So even here, Sableye has nothing to worry about. Inside Mount Moon is my first opportunity to pick up a TM, which is Water Gun, although in this first playthrough I forgot for a brief moment and then luckily remembered and went back and grabbed it. It's not an amazing move right now because Sableye's attack is significantly outpacing its special, and Water Gun has the same base power as a move like Scratch. Still, it is a better option against rock ground types. There are some other Pokemon in Mount Moon that you would think could damage Sableye, like this Super Nerd's electric types. However, neither of them know Sonic Boom yet, so they cannot damage me. Again, Sonic Boom is another normal type move that deals fixed damage, damage, so it'll hit ghosts. I take my time in Mount Moon fighting some optional trainers, as well as grabbing the TM for Mega Punch, which is a major upgrade in terms of base power over a move like Lick. Every time I'm running into wild Geodudes, I'm just knocking them out quickly with Water Gun. This makes sure Sableye is at a decent level by the time it's clearing Mount Moon. When I defeat Jesse and James, I am all the way at level 21. This is the blessing of the medium slow growth rate. Honestly, this growth rate is so good. Every time I see a Pokemon that has the medium slow growth rate, I immediately get excited to play it in a solo challenge. Okay, so I have low special. It doesn't make sense to face Misty right now. I'm gonna face the rival on Nugget Bridge first. Mega Punch is just barely not able to knock out the Spearow. I'm lucky it chose Peck, which can do direct damage to me. I think this is the most damage Sableye has taken in a single turn up until this point in the playthrough. Water Gun one-shots the following Sandshrew, and from there his last two Pokemon are simple because they only have normal type moves. Okay, as we head onto Nugget Bridge, I want to ask, how do you think I did with the back sprite? This one actually took me a while to figure out. I had many prior attempts that just didn't look very good. However, eventually I came up with this, and I think it actually looks really good. I'm very proud of it. Typically throughout Route 24 and Route 25, there's at least one trainer that can slow your Pokemon down. For example, this guy with Mankey who has low kick, but as the ghost type, I don't have to worry about any of these threats. Again, the moves that are dealing the most possible damage to Sableye at this point in the game are poison type moves, and only on the rival's team Peck. Yeah, so Sableye again is not having to worry about anything. I am doing some additional training on this route because there are a lot of trainers like this hiker who has 4 Pokemon that are easy to defeat with moves like Water Gun. By the time I make it through this area, I am level 25 heading back to Cerulean City. I didn't want to face Misty right away, so I go up against the Rocket outside of the city. This is another case where Sableye's typing is incredible. The Drowsy's best move is Confusion. This is the hardest hitting special move in most playthroughs if you haven't faced Misty yet. And yeah, Confusion can't do any damage to me, neither can Pound, so the only two things the Drowsy could do are put me to sleep with Hypnosis or disable one of my moves. It goes for the latter option, so I defeat him essentially for free. And this win gives me access to the Dig TM, which I'm going to teach in the place of Scratch. Now that I have this powerful ground type move, it is time to take on Misty. Okay, so she's going to be prioritizing her water-type moves or X-Defend. I'm hoping that Dig is going to have enough damage to one-shot at least the Staryu and then 2-hit the Starmie. I get a critical hit, so the Staryu does fall. Okay, let's see how much Starmie does to Sableye, because it's going to move first. Water Gun only does what looks like a 5th? Then my Dig does more than half. Her Ace strikes back with Bubble Beam, doing more damage, but still not very much, and then Dig finishes it off with another critical hit. Okay, so 2 easy gym leaders out of the way. This early game has been incredibly simple. Wouldn't it be ironic if Surge was the first person to give me a reset, because he's usually terrible. Although Thunderbolt does get me a little bit worried, it has 95 base power and the same type attack bonus. If Raichu hits Sableye with that, it's gonna do a lot of damage. Before that though, there's some stuff to do. I have to defeat Sandy, who can potentially be annoying with Sand Attack, but luckily Mega Punch is one-hitting her Pokemon. I do get hit by the accuracy lowering moves, but there's no way for her to damage me, so eventually I'm gonna win. On the SSN, let's be safe. I pick up the rest TM, and I'm also gonna grab Body Slam, which is a great upgrade to Mega Punch. I no longer have to rely on a move with 85% accuracy. Okay, rival time again. For the second time in this playthrough, the only move he can damage me with is his Spearow's Peck, and Body Slam one-shots his lead, so this is a foregone conclusion. Let's move on to Surge. I can't believe I spent time hyping him up. While Sableye is slower, that gives Raichu 1 turn to attack, but what does it choose to do? It chooses to go for Mega Kick. Well done, Surge. You are absolutely terrible. Of course, I choose Dig, which is super effective, and it one-shots his only Pokemon. I was curious about Surge's damage ranges against Sableye to see if he could have maybe given me a reset there with a critical hit from Thunderbolt, and the answer is no. Thunderbolt with a regular hit does 43 to 52% damage, but in Generation 1, the critical hit modifier is not flat 2. Instead, it is dynamically calculated by the Pokemon's level. And the critical hit modifier is on a logarithmic curve, so the lower the Pokemon's level, the lower the critical hit modifier will be. In this case, with a critical hit from Thunderbolt, it does 78 to 93% damage. So Sableye would just survive, use Dig, and knock out the Raichu because Dig is always doing enough damage at level 29. I just want to take a moment here to reflect on the channel and how far it has come since the beginning days of these solo challenges. Originally, I would have just said something like, oh, I got lucky against Surge, I wonder if he would have beat me. But now we can actually get the exact damage ranges, the numbers, and see my stats during these battles, which is really nice. I want to say a huge thank you to everyone who has worked tirelessly behind the scenes with me to make all of this a reality. It has taken so much effort, but the place we've come to, I think, makes these videos far better. Also, speaking of things that make these videos better, I just want to say that it has been more than 3 years now of Serena making art for the channel, so thank you so much for bringing life to these random NPCs throughout the game. Of course, today, the wrapping lass isn't an issue. Inside Rock Tunnel, generally one of the random NPCs causes a problem for the solo mon, but in this case, that's just not going to happen. Sableye has everything it needs to defeat all of them. I've made it to the mid-game now, and I've done so in a very dominant fashion. No resets, although the time is not exceptional because I have done a lot of extra training. Sableye's moveset is just going to get better and better from here though. After exploring the hideout to grab an extra rare candy, I head to the department store and pick up the TM for Rock Slide. I'm also going to purchase some vitamins here, and I decided on Carbos just because I want to ensure that my speed isn't too low throughout the mid-game. It tends to be the case that in Pokemon Yellow, the mid-game level curve really punishes slow Pokemon. Although I think my typing is going to get me by most of those threats because Psychic type damage is not going to do anything to Sableye. The Rivalin Pokemon Tower is next. This is a great opportunity for me to try out Rock Slide and miss so that the Furo uses Rock Slide back on Sableye. Luckily it does almost no damage, and then I knock out the Flyer on the next turn. Dig one-shots the Magnemite, I 2-hit the Shelter, and then Water Gun is still useful against the Sandshrew. By the way, you're probably wondering, why didn't you teach Bubble Beam in the place of Water Gun? Well, I'm holding on to it for later in the run. The Ghosts in Pokemon Tower are not a threat because I have Dig, and the Poison types on Jesse and James's team fall apart as well. After grabbing Mr. Fuji's flute, I head south of the town and pick up the TM for Swift. I'm also going to go to Saffron City to pick up the Psychic TM, which I teach in the place of Water Gun. This move in combination with Dig makes training on Cycling Road extremely quick. Whenever I need a little bit more damage, I can use the ground type move, and when I know I'm going to knock the Pokemon out, I can use Psychic. I battle a total of 4 trainers here, which are essentially the 4 standard trainers I usually battle for good experience yields. This brings Sableye to level 37 by the time I'm headed to the Safari Zone. There's a choice as to where I go next. I can fight Erica, I can go to Fuchsia City and face Koga, or I can go to Sylph. Out of these 3 options, it really seemed like Erica was going to be the best and most reliable thing to do next. And it turns out that I was really wrong about that, so here is the battle against the Grass-type specialist. Up first is Tangela. I go for Psychic, it does about a third, and then she uses Mega Drain, healing a small amount of health. The Tangela goes for this move again, even though it could have picked Vine Whip, so that means it survives another hit, taking 4 turns in total to knock out her lead Pokemon. And Sableye only has just over half health remaining. Weepinbell is next, Psychic doesn't do enough, and then it crits with Razor Leaf, bringing me down to red health. Okay, this is the first time Sableye is sweating in the playthrough. I continue going for Psychic against Gloom because I want to get a special drop in case it uses Petal Dance. In this case, it goes for Stun Spore instead, paralyzing Sableye. Then it moves first with Petal Dance and knocks me out. So my first reset in the playthrough is against Erica. I didn't want to backtrack out of the location and then have to come back here later, so I just try again right away. Body Slam 3 hits the Tangela. This time it spams Vine Whip over and over again. Why didn't it do that last time? Anyways, I'm going to go for Dig for a little bit more damage against the Weepinbell. Still, it's not enough. This time though, because its base speed is lower when compared with a Pokemon like Victory Bell, it does not get guaranteed crits with Razor Leaf, doing less damage to Sableye. I knock it out, move on to the Gloom. I go for Dig, which does more than half. Its Petal Dance doesn't do enough to knock out Sableye, and so that's a victory for me. I didn't want to go to Koga next, but if I really think about it, he's probably not going to be that bad because his best move is Psychic. That's not going to do anything to Sableye, so he's going to be prioritizing other moves, like maybe Leech Life. I don't actually know what the AI is going to do. By the way, when we implemented the Dark type into Generation 1, we also had to add it to the table of how the AI picks the moves that it's going to select. All of that logic follows the regular logic, so all of the original rules will remain true, while we have also added some new quirks to the Dark type. I'm not sure if he's going to be prioritizing Leech Life against Sableye, but he probably is. Still, I chose to go to Sylph next, and after fighting very few additional trainers, my Sableye is level level 40. This is typically the level I like to battle the rival at, so I take a quick stop in the healing room and then go up against rival 5. I thought that Psychic would have enough damage to two-shot the Sand Slash, but it doesn't. Luckily, I am not hit by a sand attack before it goes down. Cloister's next. I continue using the special move. I tank an Aurora Beam, which does about a 5th on the first turn, but then he heals with a potion on the second turn, giving me a knockout without taking more damage. Dig one-shots the Magneton. The Kadabra essentially can't do anything to me, as we saw with Houndoom yesterday, and then Dig one-shots the Flareon. This battle was really simple. And Giovanni is exactly the same. Unlike with Houndoom, Nidoqueen's double kick cannot do any damage to me. To avoid backtracking, I'm going to stay in Saffron City and head to Sabrina next. The Dark type is fantastic against her, but remember, her Psy-Waves can hit me. I can't believe I'm saying this, but this is one of the first playthroughs that I have ever done where I'm thinking about Psy-Wave as Sabrina's primary threat against my solo Pokemon. This is obviously going to be a win, right? Okay, so Avra's first. It's faster, it misses Flash, she uses X Defend, and then my Dig does not knock her lead out. Luckily for me, she misses a second Flash, giving me time to Body Slam the Abra and knock it out. I'm really thankful my accuracy wasn't lowered there. Then the Kadabra comes out and it goes for the move that I was fearing, Psy-Wave. But it does 6 damage in total, and then my Body Slam takes it to orange health. After that, things start to get bad. It chooses Kinesis, lowering my accuracy, but Body Slam still hits. Alakazam is last. I go for Body Slam, which still hits. Alright, this is going great. It does about half. The Psychic type sets up with Reflect. It doesn't know that it should be doing this, it's just randomizing its move choices because Sabrina doesn't have AI modification 3. One frustration here is that the Alakazam can use Recover, healing its health, and now that it has Reflect set up, my Body Slams aren't doing very much. Luckily for me, I inflict Paralysis, which prevents it from attacking and hopefully will prevent it from spamming Recover over and over. It manages to sneak in one Psy-Wave, doing okay damage, but not nearly enough. From there, my Sableye gets a lucky critical hit, bypassing the Reflect, knocking Alakazam out. Okay, Koga has to be next because I need to surf outside of battle. To get to him, I have to defeat the jugglers that have Psychic types. Body Slam is doing enough damage to one-shot at this point, so they're not a threat. I spend some time doing optional training fighting these two Tamers before I finish off the final mandatory trainer and take on Koga. Okay, we should go through effective powers here. Dig has 100 effective power, Rock Slide has 150 because it's super effective against the bugs, and Psychic has 180 because it is also super effective against the poison type. So here's an exercise that we can all do to gain a little bit more insight into how these games work. Right now I have a badge boost in my attack stat, which makes it 113. My special is only 90. So which move is going to be doing more damage against the Venonats and Venomoth? Rock Slide or Psychic? I'm going to give you one moment. I decided to go for Psychic here, and as you can see, it one-shots both of the first two Venonats, although the second one was a critical hit. Okay, so now that you've thought about it and come up with your answer, the answer is Psychic. In this case, it has a 100% chance to knock out the first Venonat, an 88% chance on the second one, and a 42% chance on the third one, which I unfortunately don't get. Rock Slide, on the other hand, has a 57% chance, a 19% chance, and a 9% chance to one hit. With how far ahead my attack stat was in comparison with my special attack stat, I didn't expect this to be the case. I think the reason this is playing out though is that the Venonats have lower special when compared to their defense stats. The Venomoth is the opposite case with a higher special stat. In this case, I knew that that was the case, and I went for Rock Slide thinking that it would do more damage, and luckily for me, I'm going to get a two-shot. Well, after the Venomoth uses Double Team and I start missing, this gives us an opportunity to see how Koga's AI is working, and it appears that he is just randomly selecting moves, otherwise he wouldn't have chose Double Team. He tries Leech Life, which does very little, then chooses Toxic, and my Rock Slide hits, knocking his ace out. With that win, I get a 12.5% boost to my speed stat, but it still doesn't get me faster than any of Blaine's Pokemon. So I can anticipate some problems against him. After all, in Yellow version, he is the best gym leader, despite what Red and Blue will try to convince you of. On my way to Cinnabar Island, I stop by to chat with Psych. I want some extra experience and he gives great yields. Okay, inside the Cinnabar gym, I make a choice which I'm not exactly sure why I did. I record these voiceovers sometimes months after I do the initial playthroughs, so it's not always on the top of my mind. I'm battling this guy who has one Rapidash. That is not going to level up Sableye, and it is also going to put me closer to leveling up during the Blaine fight. If I level up mid-battle, I will lose any potential badge boosts that Blaine has given me. So what this looks like is that I'm trying to set myself up for failure against the Fire-type specialist. His first Pokemon is Ninetales, and it could badge boost me with Tail Whip. And that's exactly what it does. Yeah, fighting the Rapidash was really a bad choice. I thought the Dig was going to one-hit, but it doesn't. The Ninetales just barely hangs on. It hits me with a Flamethrower, doing massive damage, bringing Sableye under half health. The experience from the Ninetales doesn't level me up, so we still have my attack badge boost from the Ninetales' Tail Whip against the Rapidash. Now here we can see Blaine having no good AI, where he chooses Takedown, doing nothing to Sableye. I go underground, hit with Dig, and Rapidash falls to a single critical hit. But what about Arcanine? This is where I level up, so I lose my badge boosts. It just chooses Takedown on turn 1. Takedown on turn 2. My Dig hits, doing much more than half because of a critical hit, but Arcanine hangs on with a sliver. This gives it time to use Takedown for a third time, and then reflect on the final turn that it's in battle. Wonderful performance, Blaine. Yes, I said he was the best gym leader, but sometimes this can still just happen. It is Generation 1 after all. As I head through the Viridian City Gym, let's just quickly check in with where I'm at in this playthrough. I have collected to this point a total of 10 rare candies, and I haven't used a single one to get by any threats. Well, there haven't really been any threats. Like, I do have one reset to Erica, but I could have fought her right before Giovanni now, and that would have made her trivial. Fighting the trainers in the gym gives me enough experience to level up to 49, and I didn't really want to use rare candies now, so I'll save them for later and try the final gym battle now. Dugtrio is first. It can hit me with Fissure because I don't outspeed it. I felt my best move against it was Body Slam for the chance to paralyze. Giovanni is of course sponsored by Guard Spec, doing nothing on the first turn, and then on the second turn, Dugtrio fails to move because of the status condition. Persian is next. I can't paralyze it with Body Slam, but I just kept going for this move, not wanting to waste time using Dig. It's enough to 3-shot, but I did have my defense lowered by 2 stages from Screech. Okay, so I was curious what his AI was going to do against me using the Nidoqueen. It does no double kick, which it might see as super effective against the Dark type. Although Giovanni just uses a Guard Spec turn 1, and then the Nidoqueen goes for Earthquake. So what is happening here is it's checking Double Kick and the Fighting type against the Ghost type before it checks them against the Dark type. This is just because Ghost comes higher in the list because the Dark type was implemented at the very end of the list from our backports. I didn't really feel like it was right for me to implement these typings in the middle of the list, so that's why they're appended onto the end. And what this means is that Giovanni should be choosing both Earthquake or Thunder against my Sableye. And when the physical move hits on the next turn, it does massive damage. Sableye survives, knocks the Nidoqueen out, but Nidoking is next, and he uses a Guard Spec again. I can't believe how many Guard Specs he has used in this battle. Just removing this item from him as a trainer would make him perform significantly better. Last is Rhydon. Of course I'm not going to one-shot. I probably should have taught Bubble Beam for this thing. That would have given me the win, but in this case, after using another Guard Spec, my Dig does about a third, Rhydon hits Earthquake, and Sableye faints. As I go through the reset and just get my game back to the place where I'm going to fight Giovanni again, I want to mention that this was one of the first times I think Giovanni has used a Guard Spec on every single one of his Pokemon. I didn't notice this until I was recording this voiceover in post, and I scrubbed back through the battle to check again, and yeah, he used one on every single Mon. By the way, he only has one Guard Spec, so he can only use one on each Pokemon, so this was Giovanni running his max Guard Spec run. By the way, this gives me a good idea. What if I played Pokemon Yellow with Giovanni's team, but not just stop there? What if every turn I had a chance of using a Guard Spec on my Pokemon replacing the move that I had selected? Of course it has to be random, like his choice of Guard Spec. Anyways, I think that would be a fun and silly challenge. Maybe I'll do that at some point in the future if enough people seem to like the idea. Okay, as you can see, I went back and battled some trainers in the gym to get to level 50 before trying Giovanni again. I'm also going to teach Bubble Beam in the place of Body Slam because normal type moves are typically not very good during the League and Kanto. Okay, so things don't go well when I come back to the fight. Dugtrio fissures Sableye, not once, but twice in a row. Then I make it past the Dugtrio to the Persian, but my health is low because the Dugtrio hit me with an attack. Because of this, the Nidoqueen is able to finish me off using Earthquake. I'm actually wondering if it can ever choose Thunder. It seems like it's always using the ground type move. Okay, so obviously things are not going well at this level. I'm going to use my rare candies now and boost Sableye all the way from level 50 up to level 60 to try Giovanni again. I get a critical hit on the Dugtrio, knocking it out in one turn with a Dig. That's a good start. I use Dig again on the Persian, although I am caught by a Screech when I'm going underground because I speed tie the Persian, so it moved first. I finish it off, move on to the Nidoqueen, and I am still not doing enough damage to one-shot. Okay, it is using Thunder sometimes. This is the first time it chooses the move, and it gets a critical hit, doing more than half to Sableye. Alright, that is a bit frustrating, but Nidoking has lower defensive stats, so I think I should one-shot with Dig. Giovanni again uses a guard spec, and Nidoking does go down. Last is Rhydon. I prepared for this with Bubble Beam. The special category move with 4 times damage does enough, and Rhydon faints. Remember back at the beginning of this video when I said I was really confident going in, and I thought it was going to be kind of a breeze throughout most of the playthrough, but I was really wrong about that? Yeah, Giovanni ended up being much more difficult than I was expecting. And I have now burnt through my rare candy reserve for the rest of the game, so hopefully I don't need too many more levels to beat the final 6 trainers. The rival on Route 22 is very straightforward. Dig is a fantastic move for this battle. I thought Bubble Beam was going to one-shot the Sandslash, but it just barely doesn't. Against the Execute, I don't have a great solution. Rock Slide is going to do the most damage. This leaves me exposed to Stun Spore, and I hate it when this Execute paralyzes me. There are so many runs where I play over safe and try to have an Ice type move just to one-shot this thing. For example, Starmie. One of the reasons I really didn't want to use Surf throughout that run was because I didn't want the chance of being paralyzed by the Execute. Luckily for Sableye, no problems with Stun Spore. The Cloyster that's next gets 2-shot with Psychic, choosing only Withdraw on its 1 turn in battle. From there, Dig one-shots, Dig one-shots again, and Dig one-shots the Flareon. So the first battle of 6, very easy. Inside Victory Road, I get 1 last rare candy, and then I had the choice of doing additional training. I decided to face this 1 black belt with 3 fighting types. They're fast to dispatch with Psychic, and it gives me enough experience to level up to 62. I didn't want to spend time leveling up more, because I would need to fight multiple trainers. So one last thing to do before I face Lorelei, I'm going to teach Sableye Mimic in the place of Bubble Beam. Now it's time for the Elite Four. Okay, Lorelei's first. My strategy is very generic, although it is quite specific. Dig turn 1 so the Dugong doesn't attack me, and then it uses Rest. After that, I should be able to knock it out quickly and move on to the Cloyster, taking no damage. Then I can use Psychic to 2-shot, and it crits me with Ice Beam. Luckily it doesn't freeze, but it does do more than half before I knock it out. After that I Mimic Amnesia and set up so that I can use Psychic to knock out her Lapras. I still think Rock Slide is probably going to be the better choice against the Jinx. Surprisingly, Slowbro does not go for Surf. By the way, it is not choosing Psychic because it can see that Dark-type moves are immune to it. In this case, it seems stuck using Withdraw. I swear it can use Surf, and it actually does right before I knock it out just to prove my point. Rock Slide 1 hits the Jinx, and that leads to Lapras. I go for Psychic, don't have enough damage, but it triggers Lorelei to use a Super Potion replacing Lapras's move, and because of that, I take an easy win. Hiker time, and with him done, let's face Agatha. This fight is almost as easy. Like, theoretically, it's very simple. I have Dig for her ghosts. They really can't do much damage to me because their best moves are Psychic type. There is a little bit of frustration at the beginning of the battle with Substitute and her switching Pokemon to the Golbat, although it doesn't impact the battle at all. I just one-shot the Haunter and the Arbok after that and arrive at her final Gengar. It could put me to sleep with Hypnosis, but in order for her to win, she would have to confuse me with Confuse Ray, and then I would have to deal self-inflicted damage until Sableye faints. And yeah, that's just not going to happen when I have green health. Okay, that is 4 of the final 6 trainers. There are only 2 left. Let's see how Lance goes. Gyarados is first, Rock Slide does more than half, and its Hydro Pump does just under half to Sableye. I miss a Rock Slide, it takes me down to red health, and then I knock his lead out. But this is not a good position. Dig is not able to one-hit the Dragonair that follows, and as a result it hits with Thunderbolt and Sableye faints. Okay, as long as I hit the Gyarados twice, this should be simple. Then I can 2-hit the Dragonair, well, it paralyzes me with Thunder Wave. One of the most annoying status conditions in a solo run. Actually, the most annoying status condition. Getting your speed cut is so awful. Now the second Dragonair, the Aerodactyl, and the Dragonite are all going to be able to attack before I hit them for damage. Note here, I am not mimicking Ice Beam. This is intentional. I am trying to use Dig and hope that I get paralyzed while I'm underground. In my challenges, I allow myself to use glitches from the battle engine because if you play Generation 1 without glitches, it's basically impossible. There are glitches happening all of the time. So in this case, if I use Dig and I become paralyzed, then the invulnerability flag will not be reset. That means that Lance's Pokemon will be unable to hit Sableye. Well, the only exception would be Swift, but I'm a Ghost type, so that won't work either. I don't manage to get paralyzed when I knock out the Dragonair, but then the Aerodactyl just uses Wing Attack and I survive. Rock Slide knocks it out with a critical hit, and I move move on to the Dragonite. Potentially it could miss one of its 4 moves. They all have imperfect accuracy. Although it chooses Blizzard, which has 90% accuracy, and it hits, so Sableye faints again. And this is where things really started to go south. While I am doing enough to 2-hit the Gyarados, sometimes it crits, bringing me down to red health, and then the first Dragonair can finish me. I use one more rare candy, going over damage rounding threshold to 65, but this doesn't help that much. I still have to 2-hit the Gyarados. While I might make it by the first and second Dragonair, I'm in a bad position by the time I reach the Aerodactyl, and if I'm there at low health, there's no chance of me outspeeding, so it's just going to take me out with either Wing Attack or Fly. The amount of luck that this fight is going to take to win at this current level is kind of absurd, so I have to 2-hit the Gyarados without missing. Then on the Dragonair, I have to not get paralyzed and hopefully not crit by Thunderbolt. On the second Dragonair, I am now trying to use Rest to heal up so that I can have Ice Beam and full health for the Aerodactyl or the Dragonite. However, this exposes Sableye to Bubble Beam, which can lower my speed, and then I won't move first against the Dragonite, which has 114 speed. Luckily for me, the Dragonair is choosing between Bubble Beam and Ice Beam, so there's also a chance I could get frozen, but I would rather risk that right now because it's only a 10% chance, whereas Bubble Beam's secondary effect is a 33% chance. I make it past the Dragonair, but then Aerodactyl crits me with Fly. Just great. I have one more loss because of paralysis. Of course it's paralysis. This status condition, oh my gosh, it makes me want to tear my hair out. It is so awful. Anyways, I was really considering blacking out here and leveling up more because this fight is just not going well. Although I don't really know what more levels will give me, I would still have to crit the Gyarados, and oh, that's what happens. Then the first Dragonair does not paralyze me with Thunder Wave, which is perfect, and Thunderbolt does so little. The Dragonair goes for Bubble Beam, dealing low damage, and I knock it out over 2 turns without getting frozen or having my speed dropped. Aerodactyl crits with Wing Attack, doing massive damage, and I think I'm going to lose this again. But it chooses another Wing Attack, which does not crit, and Sableye survives with 17 hit points. Okay, I'm going to outspeed the Dragonite, but will Ice Beam do enough damage? Sometimes when my special stat is low, it doesn't. In this case, it does. And finally, Lance is defeated. So that definitely took a lot of luck. I am definitely going to need a better plan here for my second attempt. Okay, so I have started behind the scenes using the term whiplash to describe runs like this, where one portion of the game is extremely easy, and then another portion of the game becomes extremely challenging. And yeah, that's what Sableye has going on, because the champion, yeah, he is usually the best trainer in Pokemon Yellow, and that is definitely the case for Sableye. I want you to know that this fight starts off really well for me because I crit the Sand Slash, but it only does half. Okay, so I'm going to be taking Earthquakes on the way to knocking this thing out, and then I get really unlucky and the champion uses one of his full restores. This is a low chance of happening and he rarely does this, so I get hit by another Earthquake, taken down to orange health, and then the Sand Slash survives my next hit because I don't crit, and due to that, my Sableye does not make it by his first Pokemon. Okay, so sometimes I do make it by the Sand Slash because he doesn't use a full restore. When this happens, the Alakazam is almost useless. Like, almost, because it has a chance of using Kinesis. Luckily it doesn't, and I knock it out for free. The Executor is an opportunity for me to heal up. It can't damage me, well, outside of Leech Seed. And once it sets this up, it's actually really annoying because I'm doing very little damage to the Executor with Rock Slide. It takes 5 turns to knock out and saps my health by about a 5th before it goes down. From here I thought things would be better. Dig 1 hits the Magneton, of course. Cloyster is next. I have Rock Slide, which is super effective, but Sableye misses, and Cloyster chooses Ice Beam, which of course gets a critical hit, and that's enough damage. Okay, so I was really close there. I continued trying. The Sand Slash is really annoying. By the way, it can survive 3 digs on a sliver of health and knock me out with 3 of its own Earthquakes. So that's also bad news. By the way, you might be wondering here, why use Dig when it's choosing Earthquake? In Generation 1, Earthquake does not do damage to Pokemon when they are underground. This is the only generation in the series where this interaction isn't implemented. I started playing around with maybe mimicking Recover from the Alakazam because I don't really have a better move to choose, and being able to heal my health quickly is advantageous when the Executor is going to set up Leech Seed. However, you should know that the Sand Slash in combination with the Magneton are the true villains of Pokemon Yellow. And here is a good example of why that's the case. So Magneton is not a Steel type in Generation 1. As a result, it takes 2 times damage from Dig, and Sableye is not able to one-shot it consistently. I checked the damage range for this in post, and I was absolutely stunned. Dig with 100 base power utilizing Sableye's better attacking stat at level 66 only does between 87 and 102% damage. That means it only has a 23.6% chance of knocking the Magneton out in one hit. If that's the case, then the electric type has a chance to use either Thunderbolt or Thunder Wave. And when it's Thunder Wave, it's going to move first on the next turn and then just hit Thunderbolt anyway. So, things are bad here. I don't really know what to say. I tried the fight again, and I make it by the Magneton, although I did 2-hit it. Then the Cloyster gets annoying with Clamp and Leech Seed. These two things stack together because Clamp is a multi-turn move. I can't move every time it's using it, and so that gives Sableye another reset. I now have a total of 16. Let's continue to go through all the bad things that can happen to me. Earthquake from the Sandslash can crit and 2-hit me. The Alakazam can use Kinesis. The Magneton can use Thunder Wave. The Sandslash can once again crit me with Earthquake. Okay, by this point, when I get hit by Kinesis for the second time, you're probably thinking, maybe you should black out. And yeah, I probably should have and leveled up to like 68 or maybe 70. That would give me better damage ranges specifically against the Magneton, and I would probably not be able to fail the 3-hit against the Sandslash. But it's moments like this where I get really stubborn. I wanted to see if this was possible and just how long it would take. Well, I get reset after reset after reset. Part of the thing that is compelling me to try this fight over and over again is the fact that I really don't want to fight Lance again. That fight was brutal, and leveling up for it isn't really going to change the outcomes. So even if I did want a higher level for the champion, I would have to luck my way past him. Things are so bad in this run that I am even trying Swift and Recover against the champion, a strategy I don't think I have ever tried before. So what I'm doing here is I am spamming Rest, buying time for the Alakazam to hit me over and over again with Kinesis. This badge boosts my attack stat and allows me to use Swift for hopefully better damage, but then I'm just going to miss the Magneton with Dig unless I get very lucky, so this is not an answer. The answer ends up being Hypnosis. Of course it's Hypnosis, it's one of my videos. I can mimic it from the Executor, and then put to sleep the Cloyster after I one-shot the Magneton. Then, with 3 hits from Rock Slide, I can knock it out and never get hit by Clamp. Beyond that, only Flareon is left, and after a very tiring end to the run, I hit with Dig and the Fire-type feints. Sableye gets a disappointing first playthrough time of 1 hour 7 minutes and 44 seconds, with 27 resets, 0 blackouts at level 67, with a game time of 3 hours and 14 minutes. I really didn't expect Sableye to experience this amount of whiplash during its playthrough. The early game was so simple, and then the late game was awful. I really didn't have fun playing the late game, so much so that I almost didn't optimize this run, and I was gonna box the footage and maybe release it sometime next year. Speaking of which, there is only one more video in this week of Halloween backports, and tomorrow there is the final backport in this series, and it is one that I filmed last year, and I decided not to do a second attempt because my first one was so bad, and I was almost out of time with my production schedule because Weezing vs Arbok vs Muck was taking way longer than I expected. If you're curious about the backport I'm doing tomorrow and you haven't already subscribed to the channel, do that now, ring the bell so that you're notified, because believe me, this is one you're going to want to see. It's a Pokemon that you would initially think would be impossible to backport just because of its ability. Okay, so let's get back to talking about Sableye. Here are the timeline graphs from all the playthroughs I've done this week. Surprising me, Sableye is the worst performer in its first playthrough out of all of these. I thought that Pumpkaboo would obviously be in that spot, but you can see from this graph just how much time Sableye lost during Lance and the champion alone. If it had got quite unlucky, I think its time would have been better than Toxicroak, making it the 3rd best backport overall in this month. By the way, when I was putting together a bunch of these things, I didn't actually know that I was going to do the video with Madrybread yet, so that one got squeezed into the schedule based on his availability. If you're wondering why Sandile isn't part of these results, that's why. Okay, let's talk about Sableye's second playthrough, and because I respect your intelligence, we're going to gloss over the early game because it's very straightforward. Sableye is basically a success machine until I arrive at Blaine. Now, there were 2 moments where I was considering using my rare candies, either here before the Fire-type specialist or immediately after against Giovanni. If I use them prior to Blaine, then I lose out gaining experience at a lower level in Giovanni's gym. This will impact the playthrough, meaning that I will arrive at Giovanni 1 level lower. I will also arrive in the late game 1 level lower, but I can see this being the best strategy because Blaine is awful today. He gives Sableye 4 resets before I finally defeat him. Just so everyone's aware, Dig is a guaranteed 2-hit on all of his Pokemon. The only exception is Arcanine if it chooses to set up with Reflect. To ensure that I have the maximum possible level against Giovanni, I'm going to do 2 additions to my route. 1, go to the power plant to pick up an additional rare candy, and 2, fight every trainer inside of the gym. This brings Sableye to level 52, where I can use 11 rare candies to boost it all the way up to level 63. Doing this, I have a guarantee to knock out the Doug Trio in a single hit, a 2-hit against the Persian, a 19% chance to knock out the Nidoqueen, and a 69.9% chance to knock out the Nidoking. These damage ranges apply if I don't get hit by a Screech, but in this case I do, which is actually better for me because now I have a 79.2% chance to knock out the Nidoqueen with 1 hit. Also, even though my defense has been lowered, I am not going to get one-shot by the Nidoqueen's Earthquake if it gets to use it. Then Bubble Beam just one-shots the Rhydon, and that's that. I put Mimic in the place of Bubble Beam for Lorelei, although she is more annoying this time, giving me a single reset before I defeat her. And then we only have experience to gain on the next 2 trainers, and yeah, I messed something up with my route because I was supposed to get to level 67 here so that I could use 1 rare candy to go up to level 68, but no, I'm level 66 with a tiny amount of experience left over. This changes things only a little bit against Lance. It does not make the Dragonairs or the Gyarados easier to defeat, but the higher level would give me an 83% chance against the Aerodactyl rather than a 58% chance, which I have now at the lower level. Since the difference is less than 30%, I decided to play out the playthrough to see what would happen. And I get some resets here, I was expecting them. By the way, I'm using Psychic against the Gyarados because it can drop Special, in which case I'll take less damage from Hydro Pump, and do more damage with follow-up hits. What needs to happen here is Mimic Ice Beam, heal up with Rest, then knock out the Aerodactyl in 1 hit as well as the Dragonite. And after 3 resets here, I am able to defeat his team. Okay, so for the champion, I have a different strategy. I'm keeping Psychic because it can 2-shot the Sandslash. By the way, because of the experience routing mistake I made before, I was supposed to be level 68 for this fight, which would give me a guaranteed 2-hit, but at level 67, I only have a 75.8% chance to get the damage range. Still, it's much better using a special move to 2-shot rather than tanking so many Earthquakes like I did last time. So overall, the champion is easier this time. Also, you will note for this battle I don't have Rock Slide anymore, so I'm going to rely on Stomp, which is mimicked from the Executor, to knock it out in a decent amount of time. Then, due to my higher level, I am 68 by the time the Magneton comes in, I can one-shot using Dig. The Cloyster can get me with a freeze, or say a bunch of clamps, or maybe a critical hit, but eventually I will be able to pull through and clock in with my time. In this case, second attempt, Sableye gets a time of 53 minutes and 37 seconds, with 10 resets, 0 blackouts at level 68, with a game time of 3 hours and 14 minutes. Once again, the late game was challenging, and I did have to rely on some luck. That said, I was able to improve the results so much, even with a little bit of this sloppiness. If we take Sableye's game time and divide it by 4 to find out what the optimal speed would be playing at 4 times game speed, it's about 48 minutes and 30 seconds. So getting a sub 50 minute time is definitely possible, but I'm not going to try for it today. I'm pretty happy with this improvement when compared with my first playthrough. Plus, I don't think I would play a different strategy other than having slightly better experience optimization right at the end of the game. Alright, before the end of this video, I'm going to make an announcement, so stay tuned to the very end. For now, thank you to everyone who supports me on Patreon or through YouTube memberships. It really means the world to me. Thank you for allowing us to make high quality Pokemon Solo Challenge content. So I continued playing with Sableye so that I could fight Oak in Pallet Town, and this does not go particularly well. While I can beat his first 3 Pokemon with minor issues, the reason is only the Arcanine can damage me with Ember, and it's a really bad move. By the time I arrive at the Charizard, its Flamethrower can do massive damage, and Gyarados' Hydro Pump also can do a lot. One of the issues here is that Sableye does not outspeed the Arcanine or the Charizard. So I take 1 loss, I take 2 losses actually, I get burned in the second one, which is really bad. In the third fight, you can see I'm mimicking Hypnosis, attempting to put the Charizard to sleep as well as the Gyarados. This gives me time to heal with Rest, but it also gives me time to knock out his final 2 Pokemon with Psychic, because Dig is not useful against these flying types. Here's the thing about this strategy, it is going to require so much luck. I need the Charizard to miss a Fire Spin, and then I need to hit a Hypnosis and have the Fire type sleep long enough for me to knock it out. If it wakes up, it's going to attack again and deal a lot of damage. I tried to make this happen for a little bit, and eventually I just decided to level up 1 more level so that I can pull off kind of a Mimi strategy. Against the Tauros, I can have it badge boost me with Leer and Tail Whip. I'm just hoping here it doesn't select Rage. Once it does, it's not going to do anything else for the rest of the battle, which is absolutely hilarious. It happens after only 1 badge boost, but this still allows me to move first against the Arcanine, which is a small improvement over the previous battle. Since I'm moving first against it, I don't take chip damage from Ember, which means I will survive Charizard's Flamethrower with very low health. By the way, in case you're watching in the background, that Flamethrower got a critical hit. Hypnosis hits, I use Rest to heal my health, and then I get lucky with Charizard selecting Fire Spin. When Charizard uses Flamethrower and doesn't crit, I survive with decent health, put it back to sleep, and then knock it out. Gyarados is last, it hits me twice, taking Sableye down to red health, but eventually I pull through with Hypnosis, and I use Rest healing. Gyarados wakes up, hits with another Hydro Pump, Sableye puts it back to sleep with Hypnosis, and then Psychic just barely comes through for me getting a 4-hit. This was one of the more difficult Oak battles battles I had, and if I wasn't able to keep the badge boost for the Arcanine, I think I would have reset here many more times. Okay, so now let's place Sableye in the tier list. Today, with its current time, it is able to just barely beat out Gyarados in the D tier. Not a great performance, still it did do better than Pumpkaboo overall, but if I ran these two again, I think Pumpkaboo would outperform because it has access to Swords Dance, whereas Sableye without setup is left at the whims of RNG during the late game. Okay, so we've made it to the end of the video. Here is the official announcement. Daily December is coming back this year. Every single day during the month, I am going to be releasing one fully produced video. And believe me, I've done this twice before. We have learned a lot behind the scenes about how to pull it off. This year, it is going to be so much more epic. Thank you for the long-time support. I really appreciate it. Now, if you've made it this far, you are incredible. I will see you tomorrow during the Halloween special.